So one of the first leaders that I will be talking about is Moses. While the history of Judaism is filled with famous prophets and leaders, from Kings David and Solomon to the prophets Elijah and Ezekiel, no one man had more impact than did Moses, without whose guidance and leadership the modern Jewish religion would not exist. Moses is believed to be responsible for composing the Torah, which is the most penetrated of all Jewish writings and the basis for the first 5 books of the Old Testament. It is also believed that it is he who gave the Jews the moral and ethical underpinnings that would constitute the next 1,000 years of Jewish thought. Next up on the list is Martin Luther, who was a German monk who challenged the authority of the Roman Catholic Church in the 16th century. He quickly became a key proponent of the Protestant Reformation. Luther's controversial stance unsettled the papacy of Pope Leo X, which eventually excommunicated Luther and declared him an outlaw. Over the following years, Luther would write numerous other works adopting a Protestant interpretation of the Holy Bible, which Luther translated from Latin into German. Though the movement he unwittingly started was itself to fracture into smaller groups, it is difficult to argue that without Luther, the church and the history of Western civilization would look very different than it does today. Another very widely known religious figure is Zoroaster. Zoroaster was the founder of Zoroastrianism, the major religion of the Achaemenid Empire, also known as the Persian Empire, which flourished from 550 BCE to 330 BCE. According to the prophet, man had been given the power to choose between good and evil, and it was this dualism that became the driving force behind monotheism in the Middle East, while Zoroaster's teaching became the guiding light of Persian civilization. In addition, elements of Zoroastrian philosophy entered the West through Judaism and other religions, and has been identified as one of the key early events in the development of philosophy. It is also still practiced by some people in countries such as India. Next up on the list is Confucius. Confucius was a Chinese philosopher who emphasized personal, civic, and governmental morality. Confucius thought family loyalty was also very important, and also advocated ancestor worship, which was one of the world's oldest religions. His ideas eventually developed into a system of philosophy known as Confucianism, which was introduced to Europe by the Italian Jesuit Matteo Ricci in the 16th century, and has since become popularized in the West. Confucius was also the first to express the well-known principle, "Do not do others what you do not want to be done to yourself," which is an early version of the Golden Rule. Another really important religious figure is Buddha. Siddhartha Gautama, who later acquired the title Buddha, was a prince who spent the first 29 years of his life in opulent luxury before giving it all up and embarking on a quest for understanding. It is believed that Buddha then realized that the key to enlightenment was the elimination of all desire, which is what made it possible for him to achieve enlightenment, or more precisely, a state of nirvana. His teachings laid the foundation for one of the world's greatest Eastern faith structures, known as Buddhism, which as of today claims nearly 535 million adherents worldwide. Next up on the list is Krishna, who is one of the most widely revered and most popular of all Indian divinities, worshipped as the 8th incarnation of the Hindu god Vishnu, and also as a supreme god in his own right. Often depicted as a prince playing a flute, as a small dancing child, or as many other guises including that of a military figure, Krishna supposedly represents the earthly manifestation of a god who spreads the doctrine of godliness and dramatizes the many struggles of humanity, particularly those described in sacred Hindu texts such as the Bhagavata Purana. Though he didn't actually found the modern religion of Hinduism, as its basic tenets had already been in place prior to his arrival, he is the most popular and one of the closest to the heart of the people. Ernest Holmes is yet another widely known religious figure. Ernest Holmes was a proponent of religious science, also known as the science of the mind. He studied psychology, philosophy, metaphysics, as well as all religions, searching for what he called the golden thread of truth. Holmes was the author of many books on metaphysics, and his most famous and influential book was The Science of the Mind. His Science of Mind teaching is a spiritual philosophy that has brought to people around the world a working cosmology, a sense of their relationship to God and their place in the universe, and a positive, supportive approach to daily living. Next up on the list is Guru Nanak, who was the founder of Sikhism, a monotheistic religion springing from the Punjab region of the Indian subcontinent. Guru Nanak is recognized as the first of 10 Sikh Gurus. The teachings of Guru Nanak emphasize faith and meditation about the one creator, but does not claim that any one religion knows absolute truth. Guru Nanak also stressed the oneness of all humankind, service to all in need of help, the achievement of social justice, pursuit of honesty, and being a good person at all times. Another one of the world's most widely spread religions was started by Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam. Muhammad was an Arab religious, social, and political leader and essentially the founder of Islam. He united Arabia into a single Muslim unit with the Quran as well as his teachings and practices, forming the basis of Islamic religious belief. He's referred to by many appellations including Messenger of Allah and the Prophet Muhammad. Muhammad's revelations have been regarded by Muslims as the verbatim word of God on which the religion is based. Besides the Quran, Muhammad's teachings and practices found in the Hadith and Sirah literature are also upheld and used as sources of Islamic law. So the last figure I'm going to be mentioning for this episode is Jesus, also referred to as Jesus of Nazareth or Jesus Christ, who was a 1st century Jewish preacher and religious leader. He is the central figure of Christianity. Christian doctrines include the beliefs that Jesus was conceived by the Holy Spirit, was born of a virgin named Mary, performed miracles, and founded the Christian Church. It is known that Jesus died by crucifixion as a way to pay for the sins of the world. Most Christians believe Jesus enables people to be reconciled to God, and the great majority of Christians worship Jesus as the incarnation of God the Son, the second of 3 persons of the Trinity. In fact, in Islam, Jesus is considered one of God's important prophets and the Messiah.
So the first religious figure we're starting with is Moses. Now, while Judaism is filled with famous prophets, none have had more impact than Moses. Without him, the modern Jewish religion would not exist. Having grown up in the Pharaoh's house and a potential future Pharaoh, Moses apparently left all of that, and being a Hebrew himself, he decided to join his own people in the pursuit of forming their own nation. Now, this took him on a 40-year journey to restore the Jews to the land of Canaan, where he led as many as 500,000 people according to estimates. At number 4, we have Lord Krishna. Now, it's sometimes difficult to distinguish between historical facts and fiction when it comes to some of the most ancient religious figures, and this is also the case when it comes to Lord Krishna, who is depicted as part human and part supernatural being that's capable of all sorts of miracles. Although he's meant to be a metaphor, he's supposedly based on the nephew of the hated king Kamsa of Mathura in northern India. He's said to have killed many demons and did things like purifying the Yamuna River, which is the longest tributary river of the Ganges River. Now, moving on from Lord Krishna to Gautama Buddha. Siddhartha Gautama, later known as the Buddha, was a prince who spent the first 29 years of his life in luxury before giving all of that up and going on a quest to gain more understanding. And at times, he would survive on just a handful of nuts a day, and he had several years of living in complete poverty. Now, one day while sitting under a Bodhi tree, he suddenly realized the key to enlightenment was the elimination of all desire, which is what made it possible for him to achieve enlightenment, or what's called nirvana. Now, the number 2 spot, we have the Prophet Muhammad. The Prophet Muhammad was a middle-aged merchant turned mystic turned religious leader turned military commander, so he had a lot of skills under his belt. He continues to play a role in the lives of over 1 billion people in the world today. Considered by Muslims to have been the last and the greatest of all the prophets, he's best remembered as the man who wrote the Quran, which is one of the most widely read sacred texts in the entire world. And these writings were said to have been given to him by the angel Gabriel through a series of visions over a 23-year period, and set the stage for the rapid spread of Islam throughout the world. So now we've reached the number 1 spot in this video, and that goes to Jesus. Now, with more than 2.2 billion followers worldwide, Christianity is the largest religion on earth. In the Bible, Jesus' public ministry lasted about 3 years, and he never had more than a few thousand followers during his lifetime. He left no personal writings. Instead, today he's honored not only as the greatest prophet and teacher, but is believed by many to have been the literal physical manifestation of God on earth. Let's get started in this episode. Starting at number 10, we have Hamza ibn Abd al-Muttalib. Hamza ibn Abd al-Muttalib was a foster brother and companion and paternal uncle of the Islamic prophet Muhammad. But Hamza was martyred in the Battle of Uhud on the 22nd of March 625. He was also known by other names like Asad Allah, meaning the Lion of God, as well as Asad al-Jannah, meaning the Lion of Heaven. And there was another name that he went by that the Prophet Muhammad himself gave to him, and that was Sayyid ash-Shuhada. Moving on to number 9, we have Uqba ibn Nafi. Uqba was an Arab general serving the Rashidun Caliphate since the reign of Umar and later on the Umayyad Caliphate during the reigns of Muawiyah I as well as Yazid I, leading the Muslim conquest of the Maghreb, including present-day Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, and Morocco. Uqba was the nephew of Amr ibn al-As, and he is often surnamed Al-Fihri, and he's surnamed that way in reference to the Banu Fihri, which was the clan connected to the Quraysh, which of course the Prophet Muhammad came from. His descendants would then be known as the Uqbids or the Fihrids. Uqba is the founder of the cultural city of Kairouan in Tunisia. Number 8 brings us Nusayba bin Ka'ab. Nusayba bin Ka'ab, also known as Amara, was one of the early women to convert to Islam. She was one of the companions also of the Prophet Muhammad at the time when 74 leaders, warriors, and statesmen of Medina descended on Al-Aqaba to swear an oath of allegiance to Islam following the teaching of the new religion by Mus'ab ibn Umair in the city. Nusayba was one of the only women to personally pledge directly to the Islamic prophet Muhammad. Her most well-known role came in the Battle of Uhud, where she defended the prophet. Now, she also participated in the Battle of Hunain, Yamama, and the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. I definitely felt a woman needed to be included in this episode. Now, moving on to number 7, we have Sayyid ibn Abi Waqqas. Sayyid ibn Abi Waqqas was also known as Sayyid ibn Malik, and he was one of the companions of the Islamic prophet Muhammad. Sayyid was reportedly the 7th person to embrace the religion of Islam, which he did at the age of just 17 years old. He's also very well known for his commandership in the Battle of Al-Qadisiyah and the conquest of Persia in the year 636, as well as he's known for his governorship over Persia, as well as his diplomatic journeys to China in 651. Also, at the time of the Battle of Uhud, Said was chosen as an archer. Said was among those who fought in defense of the Prophet Muhammad after some Muslims had deserted their positions. They kind of just abandoned the battle. So the Prophet Muhammad honored him by declaring him one of the best archers of that time. During that time, as he fought along the Prophet Muhammad also gathered some arrows for him. Khalid ibn al-Walid comes in at number 6. Khalid ibn al-Walid was an Arab Muslim commander in the service of the Islamic prophet Muhammad and the caliphs Abu Bakr and Umar, who played a leading role in the Ridda Wars against the rebel tribes in Arabia in the years 632 to 633, as well as in the early Muslim conquests of Sasanian Iraq in the years 633 to 634, and also Byzantine Syria in the years 634 to 638. According to the historian Hugh N. Kennedy, following his conversion, Khalid began to devote all of his considerable military talents to the support of the new Muslim state. With that said, let's continue this list. At number 5, we have Amr ibn al-As. Amr ibn al-As was the Arab commander who led the Muslim conquest of Egypt, and he served as its governor in 640 to 646, as well as between 658 to 664. Amr embraced Islam in 629, and he was assigned important roles in the Muslim community by the Islamic prophet Muhammad. He was personally tasked by the Prophet Muhammad with leading the raid of Dat al-Salasil, likely located in Western Arabia, and it was a lucrative opportunity for Amr in the view of the potential war spoils. And that was common because whenever you won a war, you would take all the spoils for yourself and maybe keep it all to yourself or divide it amongst your people. Either way, Amr launched the conquest of Egypt on his own initiative in late 639, and that's where he defeated the the Byzantines in a string of victories, and those victories ended with the surrender of Alexandria in Egypt around the year 641 or 642. The specific date is not 100% known, or at least I couldn't find the specific date anyways. Now, it was said that this was practically the fastest of the early Muslim conquests, and Egypt has remained under Muslim rule ever since that time. Next up, at number 4, we have Al-Muthanna ibn Haritha. Al-Muthanna ibn Haritha was a Muslim Arab general in the army of the Rashidun Caliphate. He was also commander of the Muslim Arabs in Al-Hira, from where they were conducting different raids in the plains of Sasanian Mesopotamia. He was also among the commanders at the Battle of Al-Qadisiyah in the year 636, after the capture of Persian territory in Iraq by Muslim Arab forces and the departure of Khalid ibn al-Walid. Al-Muthanna was put in charge of Muslim Arab occupied territories of Iraq. From there, Al-Muthanna relied on his tribe, the Bakr, along with several other powerful Arab tribes, including the Taghlib and the Tamim, and he really depended on them to maintain control over the territories. Al-Qaqa ibn Amr al-Tamimi comes in at number 3. This man was from the Banu Tamim, and he and his tribe converted to Islam around the time of Anaf ibn Qais. He's known as a very successful military commander who took part in 2 important victories in early Muslim conquests. Those were the Battle of Yarmouk against the Byzantine Empire, and also the Battle of Al-Qadisiyah against the Sasanian Empire. Later, the Caliph Abu Bakr praised him as an equal to 11,000 men. So in return, the Caliph predecessor, Caliph Umar, only sent him a handful of bodyguards as reinforcements to Al-Qadisiyah as the first wave of reinforcement, making him one of the most efficient military figures of that time. Next up at number 2, we have Umar ibn al-Khattab. Umar was one of the most powerful and influential Muslim caliphs in history. He was a senior companion of the Islamic prophet Muhammad. Now, what's really important to note is that during his reign, almost the entire Sassanid Persian Empire were annexed to the Rashidun Caliphate. According to one of the estimates, more than 4,050 cities were captured during these military conquests. So prior to his death in the year 644, Umar had ceased all of his military expeditions, and this was to consolidate his rule in recently conquered Roman Egypt and the newly conquered Sassanid Empire. That happened between the years 642 to 644. And at the time of his passing away in November 644, his rule extended from the present-day Libya in the west to the Indus River in the east, as well as the Oxus River in the north. Now, coming in at number 1 in this episode, we have Ali ibn Abi Talib. Ali ibn Abi Talib was a cousin and son-in-law of the Islamic prophet Muhammad, who ruled as the 4th caliphate from the year 656 up until 661. And the thing is, Ali is regarded as the rightful immediate successor to the prophet Muhammad as an imam by Shia Muslims. Sunnis do not believe that though. With the exception of the Battle of Tabuk, Ali took part in all of the battles and expeditions fought for Islam. As well as being the standard bearer in those battles, Ali, he led military troops and warriors on raids into enemy lands, and Ali had played a major role in the Battle of Uhud, as well as many other battles. This is why he is number 1 in this episode.
Alright guys, so at number 10 is Zainab Ahmad. She was perhaps one of the most eminent Islamic scholars of the 14th century. Zainab belonged to the Hanbali school and resided in Damascus. She had acquired a number of ijazas, which are diplomas basically, in various fields, most notably in the field of hadith. In the early 14th century, she taught such books as Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, the Mutawa of Malik B, and many more. Among her students was the North African traveler Ibn Battuta. Zainab's name appears in several dozen of the isnads of Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani. It is important to point out that Zainab was actually one of the hundreds of female scholars of hadith during the medieval period in the Muslim world. Next up on the list is Razia Sultan, who was the ruler of the Sultanate of Delhi between 1236 and 1240. Her father Shams al-Din al-Tumish had Razia designated as heir before his death. therefore making her the official ruler of the Sultanate. She was a fairly effective ruler and was a major patron of learning, establishing schools and libraries across northern India. In all matters, she behaved like a sultan, leading armies, sitting upon the throne, and even adopting the same royal dress as her father. To the outrage of many, she also insisted on appearing unveiled in public. In 1240, she was overthrown in a rebellion by the nobles of the kingdom, who, among other things, were strongly opposed to being led by a woman. Well, that's really unfortunate. Go female power nonetheless. At number 8 is Al-Malika Al-Harra Arwa Al-Saleh. Her full name is Arwa Ahmad B. Muhammad al-Saleh. From 1067 to 1138, she ruled as the Queen of Yemen in her own right. She was an Ismaili Shi'i and well-versed in various religious sciences, Quran, Hadith, as well as poetry and history. Chronicles describe her as being incredibly intelligent. Arwa was given the highest rank in the Yemeni Fatimid religious hierarchy by the Fatimid Salif al-Muntasir. She was also known for being the first woman in the history of Islam to be given such an illustrious title and to have such authority in the religious hierarchy. It was also during her reign that Ismaili missionaries were sent to Western India, where a major Ismaili center was established at Gurjat, which continues to be a stronghold of the Ismaili Bohra faith. She played a major role in the Fatimid schism of 1094, throwing her support behind al-Mustali and later al-Tayyib, and it is a mark of her immense influence that the lands under her rule, Yemen and parts of India, would follow her in this. Indeed, Yemen became the stronghold of the Tayyibi Ismaili movement. Her reign was marked by various construction projects and improvement of Yemen's infrastructure, as well as its increased integration with the rest of the Muslim world. She was perhaps the single most important example of an independent queen in Muslim history. At number 7 is Rab'iyya al-Adawiyya. She is known to be one of the most important mystics for Sufis in the Muslim tradition. Al-Adawiyya spent much of her early life as a slave in southern Iraq before attaining her freedom. She is considered to be one of the founders of the Sufi school of divine love, which emphasizes the loving of God for his own sake rather than out of fear of punishment or desire for reward. Ali. She was the granddaughter of the Prophet Muhammad through his daughter Fatima and her husband Ali bin Ali Talib. She was a leading figure of the Al-Bayt during the late 7th century and played a central role both during and after the massacre at Karbala, where her brother Al-Hussein ibn Ali and 72 of her nephews and other brothers were killed by the Umayyads. For a time, she was the effective leader of the Ahl al-Bayt and served as the primary defender of the cause of her brother, Al-Hussein. At Kufa, she defended her nephew, Ali ibn al-Hussein, from certain death by the governor of the city, and when presented to the Yazid ibn Muawiyah at Damascus, she gave such an impassioned and forceful speech at the royal court that the caliph was convinced by his advisors to release her and the prisoners taken at Karbala. Her strength, patience, and wisdom makes her one of the most important women in early Islam. Her shrine at Damascus remains a major place of visitation by both Sunnis and Shias, a fact that emphasizes the universality of her legacy among Muslims. At number 5 is Aisha bin Abi Bakr, who is a figure that requires almost no introduction. Aisha was the wife of the Prophet Muhammad, who had perhaps the most influence on the Muslim community after his death. She played a central role in the political opposition to the third and fourth caliphs, Uthman ibn Affan and Ali ibn Abi Talib, even leading an army against the latter at Barsa in 656. Although she retired from political life after her defeat, she continued to play a major role as a transmitter of Islamic teachings. She is actually one of the major narrators of hadith in the Sunni tradition. In many ways, she is among the most interesting and controversial figures in early Islam, especially since the implications of her actions for women's participation in scholarship, political life, and the public sphere clashed with later conservative conceptions of the role of women. Alright, so number 4, next up on the list is Nusayya bin Khabi al-Ansariya, who is also known as Amara. She was a member of the Banu Najjar tribe and one of the earliest converts to Islam in Medina. As a companion of the Prophet Muhammad, there were many virtues attributed to her. She is most remembered, however, for taking part in the Battle of Uhud, in which she carried sword and shield and fought against the Meccans. She shielded the Prophet Muhammad from enemies during the battle and even sustained several wounds in front of him to protect him. It is said that after she sustained her 12th wound, she fell unconscious, and the first question she asked when she was awakened was, "Did the Prophet survive?" A testament to her loyalty and commitment to the new faith. At number 3 is Fatima al-Fihri. Fatima was one of the founders of the oldest degree-granting universities in the world. After inheriting a large fortune, she wanted to devote her money to work that would benefit the community. Thus, with her wealth, she built the Al-Qarawiyyin Mosque. From the 10th to 12th century, the mosque developed into a university known as Al-Qarawiyyin University. Today, the Guinness Book of World Records and UNESCO recognize the university to be the oldest continuously operating institution of higher education in the world. On the note of education, Nana Masu is another very famous Muslim woman in history. Nana was a princess, poet, and teacher. She was fluent in Arabic and well-versed in Arabic, Greek, and Latin classics. In 1830, she formed a group of female teachers who journeyed throughout the region to educate women in poor and rural regions. With the republication of her works that underscore women's education, she has become a rallying point for African women today. Today in northern Nigeria, Islamic women's organizations, schools, and meeting halls are frequently named in her honor. Last but certainly not least is Khadija bin Khuwaylid. Even before her famous marriage to the Prophet Muhammad, she was an important figure in her own right, being a successful merchant and one of the elite figures of Mecca. She played a central role in supporting and propagating the new faith of Islam and has the distinction of being the first Muslim. As the Prophet Muhammad himself is believed to have said in a hadith preserved in Sahih Muslim, he says, "God Almighty never granted me anyone better in this life than her. She accepted me when people rejected me. She believed in me when people doubted me. She shared her wealth with me when people deprived me. And God granted me children only through her." Indeed, another one of the most important women of early Islam was Fatima al-Zahra, the daughter of the Prophet, by Khadija, and it is only through Fatima that the lineage of the Prophet Muhammad is preserved. These facts make Fatima and her mother Khadija among the most revered female persons in Islamic history.